tiebreakers. That was the theme in Week 9 of the North American LCS. If you stayed up and watched all those games over the weekend, then congratulations to you, because you were probably staying up to the wee hours of the morning, depending on where you're located. But there were plenty of standout performances and some not so impressive performances after Week 9. Let's start with the honors out of Week 9. And we got to start with someone from 100 Thieves after putting out a 3-0 week and securing first place after the regular season. They got a bye heading right into the semifinals, taking on the lowest seeded team coming out of quarters. And I'm looking to the man in the jungle, and it's Meteos, who had a fantastic week for 100 Thieves. Got to play, he's been playing his patented Zac, which is one of the main champions he burst onto the scene with way back in Season 3. But Week 9, 10.3 KDA, over 77% kill participation, and he locked up or contributed the first blood in all 3 games for the Thieves. He's been a top 2 probably jungler the entire split. I think him and Dardoch have been the best 2 NA junglers in the spring split, and he's been a real playmaker for 100 Thieves, combined with Afro in that bottom lane. They have been taking over some games, and the Thieves are 9-1 in their last 10 games. They turned it on in a big way to close out the spring split regular season. 2 wins against Echo Fox to secure that top spot. I wasn't so sure about Meteos coming into this split. I thought he might. You could kind of tell when there was negative backlash towards him, he was getting tilted. But he has not shown that whatsoever. Maybe for a couple weeks when 100 Thieves were struggling, but he has definitely bounced back and way overperformed what I was expecting out of him in that jungler spot. So kudos to Meteos for coming out big in Week 9 for 100 Thieves. 3-0, 2 wins against Echo Fox. And I just want to say, I don't know why Echo Fox was playing their subs before they even locked up that first seed. I guess they want to give them on-stage experience. Maybe they don't care about that first seed, but they don't have it now because they were using a lot of their subs. The other honorable mention for Week 9 in the NALCS, you got to look to TSM, because they basically played a super week. They played 4 games, went a perfect 4-0 to lock up the third place in the NALCS playoffs. And I couldn't pick one player. Bjergsen, Sven, Mike Young all played fantastically, so let's just give it to the entire team. All of TSM gets some honor for Week 9, and they put up some absolutely ridiculous numbers. We mentioned that 4-0 record. Their kill death ratio was 3.3, which is absolutely insane. Most teams average around 1.2, 1.3 for the split. The average game time across those 4 games, just over 34 minutes. They were absolutely clobbering a lot of these teams. No game went over 40 minutes for them. They looked super clean. 41-7 in turrets. They were just completely dominating all objectives throughout these games. You also look at Barons. They were 6-1 in that category. 12-2 in Dragons, just completely controlling the map. Bjergsen, 14.4 KDA. Sven, 20.5. He remains to be the only guy in NA who can actually make the Ezreal look good in any of these team compositions. TSM, even though they don't have a bye, they are probably the scariest team to be matched up against heading into these playoffs, just because you know that these guys, when it comes to best of 5, we've been saying all split they were going to be looking like an even better team, and they already look super solid. So good luck to Clutch in that 3-6 matchup heading into the playoffs. Time for the reports, and there's plenty to choose from in Week 9 because a lot of teams were struggling. Now, we're not going to pick on the non-playoff teams just because this weekend was all about playoff implications and tiebreakers. So the first one we're going to is actually Smoothie in the bottom lane for Cloud9. And it's the first time he's been on the other side of honor and reports. He's been an MVP frontrunner for the majority of the split, probably the 1-2 in the support position in NA, but this week, it wasn't so good. 1.6 KDA, more than a quarter of his team's deaths at 26.5. Obviously, Cloud9 went 1-3, dropped from first in the NALCS all the way down to 5th. Luckily, they avoided playing TSM in that first round matchup by beating Clutch to close out the week. But luckily for Smoothie, he still has one very fresh haircut. He's always looking very classy with his dyed hair, so he's got that going for him still. And again, Cloud9 do avoid TSM in that opening round matchup, but Smoothie just seemed a little bit off, even on patented champions like his Alistair, on stuff like Thresh. He was just kind of getting over-aggressive and leading his team to dives and engages that basically got them all killed and threw them off there. Svenskeren also not a great week for Cloud9. Really no one on Cloud9 had a great week. Licorice had a couple good games, but a couple very bad games as well. And it's a bit concerning because the last 2 weeks have definitely been a downward trend for the boys in blue. We'll see if they can get back on track in the quarterfinals up against Team Liquid. That's a tough matchup. They're definitely going to be, I think Liquid's definitely favored in that matchup. Speaking of Liquid, they had a pretty solid week, actually, locking up that 4th place. Nice meme, paid by Steve, get them all out there. They just, fourth in Liquid. It's been a while since that meme actually was revisited because Liquid's been terrible the last while, but they are back in their rightful place in 4th position. But I got to report the notorious POB, Pobelter. Now listen, he actually had a pretty solid week, as I mentioned. Liquid looks pretty good across all their games. The reason he's getting reported is because of one single play on Ryze against TSM. Far and away the worst realm warp that we've seen this split, maybe across all competitive scenes, but it was absolutely hilarious and actually had pretty big implications on the game because I think if they do a proper Ryze ulti here, they can actually chase down TSM, maybe get another kill or two, which could obviously lead to complete control over the map because they were behind at this point in the game, but not too far behind that they couldn't come back. They end up getting nothing out of that Ryze ult. It actually slows them down. Really, and TSM eventually closes that one out relatively easily. So maybe if Pobelter lands an actual 300 IQ Ryze ultimate, not a 3 IQ Ryze ultimate, maybe they come back into that game. But nonetheless, POB had a pretty solid weekend for Team Liquid, and Liquid as a whole they looked a lot scarier than they have the rest of the split. Doublelift busting out the Jhin. He looked pretty terrifying. Impact was looking good. So was Xmithy. Some Baron steals. So Liquid, a team to be feared in the playoffs. And the playoffs as a whole in NA, I think at least the first round is much more interesting than in EU. I think Clutch, pretty huge underdogs up against TSM just because they've looked fantastic. And Cloud9 and Liquid is a very interesting quarterfinals matchup, probably a little earlier than most people were expecting, but it's all going to be very exciting with the regular season behind us. Time for MVPs, and all pro teams. We'll be going over those videos very shortly, probably the next day or two here in the studio. Mark's going to join me, and we're going to break it all down. So make sure you guys are checking us out at League on Lock.